All gas, no brake.
And now we have liftoff. Welcome into the Now We Have Liftoff New York Jets podcast. And of course, I'm your host, John June. And of course, you obviously know my guy to my left, Frank Jim Piccolo. And then you're probably wondering who this guy below us is, but we'll get into that in a minute. Frank, how we doing today, brother?
Doing okay, man. A little sad the Jets weren't on this past weekend, but, you know, what are you going to do? It's part of the process, I guess.
Hey, well, if you don't have high expectations, then you can't be disappointed. So there's that. So obviously, Coach BORYS is here with us. Frank, why don't you intro Coach BORYS in, since you're the one most well connected to Coach BORYS.
So this was my high school offensive line head coach, offensive coordinator, pretty much defensive coordinator, pretty much all around. Coach, why don't you let our listeners know where they could find you, a little bit about yourself before we start breaking down the Jets?
You know, you can I'm on Facebook, and you can email me at steve.boris at Gmail. And I coached Frankie years ago at Sleepy Hollow High School, and he was our center and middle linebacker there, and he had an amazing career for us. And I didn't know he was a broadcaster like he is right now. Okay, and he's got this beautiful face that we can see now on the big screen.
Sounds good. Sounds good. John, you ready to get into this offensive year that we had?
Yeah, man. I mean, not quite the year we were hoping for from our beloved New York Jets. They finished pretty much almost last in every major statistical category. I mean, 30 or 28th in total points, or 28th in total yards, rather, near the bottom of the league in total points. 28th in points as well. It just wasn't a great season there for the Jets offensively. And I mean, you kind of expected that when you understand they're dealing with a rookie quarterback there. You have a first-time offensive coordinator. There's a lot of growing pains that this offense had to overcome. But when you look at it as a whole, I mean, it starts obviously with coaching and Mike LaFleur. I mean, he definitely took his lumps to start the year. But as the year progressed, he was much, much better in terms of being able to set up counter punches, which is something that we had talked about earlier in the year, his not being able to adjust. And we saw that he had an adjustment, and then he was able to build on that by having an adjustment to the adjustment that he was, anticipating by the defense. So, I think it was a fantastic maturation process of just the offensive coordinator and of himself in Mike LaFleur.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's the most important aspect for a coach, is to be able to counterpunch. Football is the ultimate chess game. You're trying to set up the other team for later on in the game. And you kind of saw that later on in the year with, the fake end arounds and the hook and ladder that they ran. But, I don't think Mike LaFleur is long to be the offensive coordinator for the Jets. I think eventually he's going to get that call to be a head coach in this league. You just see it very early with him.
You think he's ready for head coach already? Oh, wow.
I want to slow the pump the brakes a little bit, right? Like we get so caught up in in offensive play callers and defensive play callers, but there's so much more to being a head coach, right? I think that teams will come calling, right? But to whether he believes that he's ready or he just became ready apparently to be a coordinator, first time coordinator at any level, right? So I think back to high school was the only time that he had called plays. So there has been some growth, there has been some maturation. I do want to continue to see it, but I do agree that Jet fans should feel nervous that sometime in the near future there's a possibility, you will see Michael LaFleur's name pop up on an interview request. I mean, we've seen Kellen Moore after 3 successful years in Dallas. I mean, obviously the offense has been much better, right? So I think if the Jets can get into those top 12, right, that top 12 of NFL offenses, then teams will definitely start calling. But like we said before he left, right, or before he was hired, or when he was hired rather, Robert Saleh didn't bring in a coordinator. He brought in a system, right? He brought in the Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan West Coast offense. So like we said back then, the league is littered with these assistants. You can go look all over. I mean, we've got, 3 of them at least playing, 3 Shanahan disciples. I mean, including Shanahan playing in the postseason right now. When you look at the Niners, the Rams, and then the Bengals, right? So that's at least 3 right there. So there's assistants all over these rosters, all over these teams that can come in and fill that void if need be.
Without a doubt. I was just more talking about the way that the league is going right now. They're trying to bring in these head coaches that are young. Look, the Giants hired Joe Judge 2 years ago. Like, there's just so massive turnover with the league that they want the best young Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and I could see a team that's like the Chicago Bears, taking a leap of faith on a guy like Mike LaFleur, especially when you look at what his brother is able to do in Green Bay.
Yeah, and I mean, Coach BORYS, I'm going to ask you. I mean, what do you think are some of the challenges that an offensive coordinator might have coming into his first season with new personnel, with a rookie quarterback, and what's that process like throughout the year from first game to to the end of the season?
It's just about time. You got people, especially you got the new quarterback, new receivers. It's just going to take a while for all that to mesh. It's when you look at the great offenses and everything, they've been together. The receivers and the quarterback, they know what they're going to do beforehand. Especially with a rookie, right? You don't want to put him in a position where he's going to get hurt, and lose the game and hurt his confidence. But at the same time, you don't want to be too conservative, right, and kind of hinder his development. But from what I saw, I think they were trending in the right direction by the end of the season. Would you guys agree that I think there were some positives? They don't have any dynamic weapons around them, right? And but I like the evolution of the play call, especially the last game. There were some questionable things, but I thought there was some like that quarterback sneak, right, on what was it, 4th and 3, but I think they're going in the right direction. And even with that, they were supposed to fake it, do a jet sweep, and it was like a check. That's part of the inexperience with play calling, where you want to give them the best opportunity to be successful, but sometimes you overthink it in your quest to have the perfect play. Just run a play. You kind of outsmart yourself, and that's just a sign of inexperience. God knows I've done that. I've outsmarted myself plenty.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do every now and then, but like we've all said, right? The maturation process of Mike LaFleur throughout the year was definitely encouraging to see. I mean, Jet fans at one point even wanted him fired, right? I mean, I know I was here. I never called for him to get fired, but I definitely was calling for him to get better and get better quick, because I definitely was not happy with what we were seeing early on. But again, the maturation process was awesome. And One of the maturation processes that Jet fans were really interested in and were very much hoping to see was that of rookie quarterback Zack Wilson. He was the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. Obviously, this was a draft class that was supposed to be very quarterback heavy. We had 5 guys go in the top 15. That's almost never happens in draft classes where you got 5 guys that go in that top 15 like that. And you had 3 of them go in the top 3. So when you really look at when you look at across the NFL, the rookie quarterbacks as a whole didn't really have a great year outside of maybe Mac Jones in New England. And you look at his situation and you say his situation is probably the best of all the rookie quarterbacks. But when you look at Zack Wilson's rookie year, 55.6 completion percentage, only started 13 games, 2,334 passing yards, 6.1 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Some positives, he was stuck on, he's been stuck on that 11 interception number basically since week 13. He had, after basically starting the year with an interception in every single game, obviously had the 4 interception game against New England. He had 9 interceptions through his first 10 interceptions through his first 5 NFL games, or 9 interceptions through his first 5 NFL games. Picked up another 2, between week 12 and week 13, but for the rest of the year didn't have another interception. So you saw that growth. You also saw him use his legs more down the stretch. We saw him be able to operate an offense a little bit better, right? Where at the beginning of the year, it was more about the splash plays. It was more about, breaking the pocket and making a throw down the field and showing off his athleticism and his movement skills and his big arm. But you really started to see him at the back half of the year play within the offense, play within the scheme, really play what Salah had called earlier in the year boring football, right? Like, basically doing what Mike White had done, which was come in and run the offense, go through your progressions, not try to make plays that aren't necessarily there, right? Because the thing is, and we've talked about this, Zack Wilson we know he's supremely talented. We get that. That's why he was the number 2 pick in the draft. But the difference between the good ones and the great ones isn't about the talent level that they have, but the consistency with which they play, right? Like on a down-to-down basis, right? That's what makes Tom Brady so good. That's what made Drew Brees so good. Like you knew what you were going to get from them on a down-to-down basis. And that's what makes Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers so good, because they have that down-to-down consistency, but when all hell breaks loose and you have to make a play, they can make something out of nothing. And we see that with guys like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. And I think Zack Wilson has that. The Jets just have to be able to put the pieces around him. I know one of the conversations you and I have been having a lot, Frank, is use Josh Allen and what the Buffalo Bills have done. Use that as the model, right? Josh Allen didn't have a great rookie year, but they went out, they build the offensive line. They were able to build this defense. They're able to get a player like Stephon Diggs, and look at what Josh Allen has become, obviously through hard work of his own, but look at what he's become after many like you and myself thought that he would be out of the league by this time.
Yeah, and I kind of compare Zack Wilson's early tenure to life before Becht and life after Becht, right? Like as soon as the Jets decided to hire his personal quarterbacks coach, the light bulb kind of went off where the checks started to become easier. You're able to move Mike LaFleur up into the booth. So now he's got a bird's eye view on what the defense is trying to do, how they're trying to attack him. And he could get that broad view on how he wants to attack the defense. And we also have to put into account that the Jets had 0 weapons when he toward the later half of the year. Elijahmoore was hurt. Correydavis went on IR. Jamisoncrowder in and out. Keelancole ended up getting hurt. Michaelcarter got hurt. So, like he's playing with practice squad players, and nothing against practice squad players, but there's the reason why they're practice squad players.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely tough personnel wise, right? And I think that's what we as fans, and I think we were kind of guilty of this as well, right? Like we came out with such high expectations as we start seeing highlights from camp and reports, and we start seeing him play preseason games, and we're like, hey, this, maybe the Jets can make a little bit of noise this year, right? But then when the bullets start flying and Elijahmoore is, you're expecting him to really be that guy in week 1 of his NFL season. That's not a reasonable expectation to really have, right? So this was a young football team. They started more rookies, the most rookies in the NFL. They started more first and second year players than any other NFL team. So next year, those first and second year players are going to be second and third year players. And I think that you use this opportunity that you have in free agency with the cap flexibility that you have, along with the draft flexibility that you have, the assets that you have, to be able to complement this young roster that has all of this youth and this energy, and be able to add some experience so you can really see what you have in a player like Zack Wilson, because ultimately that's what's going to make or break Joe Douglas's tenure here with the New York Jets, right? You made the decision to move on from Sam Darnold, and you made the decision, you had, of all the first round quarterbacks, you had your choice of 4 of the 5 of them, and this was the kid that you picked. So Woody Johnson and company have to watch Mac Jones play in a playoff game in year 1 for the division rivals, right? So you're running out of time. You've got to put the best possible product on the field to extract as much of the physical tools and the ability that Zack Wilson possesses as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Coach, what have you seen that you liked and maybe disliked from Zack Wilson so far in his tenure with the Jets?
He's a kid, and he played like a rookie. And, that's just to be expected, and what, you were saying is that this is the youngest roster, right? So it's not like, he was, and with one of the youngest coaching staffs, and Mac Jones up in New England had a good year. Well, he's surrounded by Belichick, right? And all the folks up there. But I'll tell you what, I like his potential. And I like that last game, I got excited. There were so many things in that last game I saw that are in the right direction. And I think the head coach, I think people want to play for him. Would you guys agree with that? Is that people want to play for this head coach, and that he's somebody who, he's a player coach, but he's also somebody who's going to hold people accountable. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you could definitely get that sentiment. I don't think that I don't want to compare to previous coaching staffs, and I don't want to name coaching staff in particular, but you've seen guys that, they come out, they make mistakes, and they're not getting penalized for it. But this coaching staff seems to not have a problem making an example out of somebody. I mean, denzelmims, for example, who, he's been regardless, we've seen the plethora of injuries and even practice squad players that have come up and taken wide receiver snaps for the New York Jets. And so for second round receiver from a year ago to not get some of those opportunities, there's got to be some tough love in there, as well as, we've heard, we heard in the offseason, in the preseason, Mekhi Becton also received some of that tough love as well. So I think they're definitely going to get on some players, and they're not afraid to give them some of that tough love.
And it's tough because you have the NFL, you have to win now, right? And I know, all us folks who love the Jets, it's been a while. But with the situation you're in, it's a young team, and it's just going to require a little patience. And hopefully, the coaches can get them rallied sooner rather than later before everybody runs out of patience.
I think that's going to be the key, is how long does ownership have the patience, and how long can they withstand the fans of, because there's going to be a large fan base that wants them to win immediately, that wants them to make that splash move, like when they did and traded for Brett Favre, and then it doesn't work and you fire Mangini, when you probably should have had more patience with Mangini and kept him as the head coach and have him coach those teams going forward.
Yeah, it's tough, and like Coach said, it's a win now business. NFL state, like we like to say, not for long. So you once you get in, Coach Salah's honeymoon phase is over, right? Like, we gave him all the benefit of the doubt. Everybody's pointing their attention really to Joe Douglas right now, because he's the only guy left that we can really blame, right? Like, we don't have McCagney to blame. We don't have Adam Gase. We don't have Sam Darnold, right? So Zack Wilson and Robertsalah, they're getting the benefit of the doubt here. So Joe Douglas, he's really has to be the one to feel the brunt of this thing if it doesn't turn around. And the best way he can do is by adding some more pieces, like some of the weapons and playmakers he added in the NFL draft. One being number 8, Elijahmoore, the rookie wide receiver, along with obviously he made the addition of Correydavis. That one didn't really have the impact that's we may have felt that it would to start the year. The pass catching group as a whole, when you really look at it, we came into the year thinking that it was going to be this really deep group, right? When you looked at the preseason depth chart and you're like, oh, Correydavis and Elijahmoore, Jamisoncrowder, denzelmims, Braxton Barrios, keelancole, like this is a really good depth chart. And then when you get to the season and Elijahmoore misses a bunch of preseason time with a quad injury, and then Jamisoncrowder, he misses week 1, and Correydavis is dealing with some issues to start the year. And it seemed like none of this receiving core was just never really cooking at the same time, right? Like you had Mims, or not Mims. Mims was never cooking, but you had Correydavis, who had his moments at the start of the year. Obviously, the Carolina game in week 1. He had the big game against Tennessee in week 5, I believe that was. So he had his moments to start the year. And then obviously there was Elijahmoore stretch where he was just, he looked like one of the best young receivers in all of football for about 4 or 5 weeks in the NFL. And then, there's no Correydavis for that, but then he goes down. And then obviously Braxton Barrios at the end of the year, he made a ton of plays, not only on special teams, but also as a receiver, ends up making first team all pro as a return man there for the Jets. So, I mean, there are players on this roster. There are players in this position group in this pass catching group. They just need to definitely add talent to that. What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, when we looked early on, I remember having this conversation with DJ Bienemy when he was on before the season, and he said this is probably one of the deeper position groups that the Jets have. But if you take Denzelmims out, because Denzelmims couldn't get on the field because, at least from my opinion, what it looked like is that he couldn't learn the Shanahan West Coast offense, that position group no longer becomes deep, because now your next best receiver is Keelancole. And now you can't use Keelancole how you wanted to use Keelancole. And that's not even to mention all the injuries the Jets had.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely tough. Not the year we thought that it would be. I mean, Elijah Moore ends up leading the team in targets and receiving yards and touchdown receptions, and 538 yards, 5 touchdowns. The leading receiver in terms of receptions would be Jamisoncrowder. Um, Actually, could have been Braxton Barrios had he played Week 17, which I thought would have been just another, feather in his cap when he goes to enter his negotiations this offseason as a free agent. But um, yeah, they definitely need to add another. They really need either a big play threat or somebody that can play in the middle of the field, right? Because if you get one of those two things, it pretty much frees up Elijah Moore, because Elijah Moore he can play outside, he can be your short to intermediate receiver, he can play in the slot, he can do a lot of things, right? So if you can get a deep receiver, then that allows you to maybe move Elijah Moore around a lot, or maybe you get a big inside presence, and that allows you to keep Elijah Moore on the outside and be your main vertical threat. I mean, not to mention on top of that, they still need to add some kind of playmaker at the tight end position as well.
I was just gonna say that, you got Schultz is gonna be hitting free agency, you got Kaseki. So either one of those guys work with, dare I say, Allen Robinson or Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and if you look at the Chiefs model, where their offense, where they got the receiver who can blow the roof off, right? And then you got that big tight end to work underneath. It's absolutely devastating. And if you find that big play threat, all the receivers that they currently have, they're just going to get better, because now they'll be getting the single coverage and they'll have to roll the safety over to deal with your number one now.
Absolutely, and that's what makes an offense click, is having as many weapons on the field as possible, where the defense can't double team a particular weapon that you would have. So now you're getting one-on-one coverage, and you also, John, we can't forget about the person that had your pants all in a tizzy during the draft, Michael Carter.
Yeah, I mean, we will talk about Michael Carter in just a second, and just to add to what you guys were talking about, we really saw what this Mike LaFleur offense is at its core, right? You run the football with this West Coast wide zone run scheme, but the quarterback, it's about getting the ball, distributing the football to your 5 eligibles. It's not like, well, this is the Adam Gase offense where we operate through the slot receiver, or we operate through this or through our X or our Z. This is like, no, we're going to use all 5 eligible receivers, and our quarterback's essentially a point guard, right? Where he's just going to distribute the football. And I think when you look at it like that, getting as many playmakers, getting as many people that can make plays in space for offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur is, of the utmost priority this offseason, whether it comes through the draft or free agency. And some other additions that they can make are to that backfield to go along with the dude who basically had my pants off on draft day, Michael Carter. It's funny. I was actually going back. I was looking, at some pre-draft stuff, and I had to remind myself how much in love I was with the prospect of Michael Carter. I mean, this guy was the leader in scrimmage yards each of the last 2 years at the University of North Carolina, even though he was there with the higher drafted running back in Javonte Williams. He gets it done both as a runner and a receiver. He's such a menace in space for defenders. I mean, the way his stop start ability, his contact balance. I thrown this comparison out so many times. Again, styles, not talent, but he reminds me of Alvin Kamara in terms of the way that you can use them as players, the way that you can line them up as a receiver. He doesn't have that receiver in him that way that Alvin Kamara does. When you line him up out wide, and he can run the receiver route tree. He doesn't quite have that, but he can line up in the slot. You be used as a mismatch on linebackers. You can use him out of the backfield as a receiver, and he shows so much toughness as a runner that it's hard to not want to give him the football 16 to 18 times just in the run game, a game. So like I really love the player. I love the scheme fit even more, right? Like this scheme is built for a player like him, with his speed and his agility and his vision. So, I think the sky's the limit, but ultimately you're going to have to get another running back in here to not just take off the load, but to be that clock killer at the end of the game, be that presence around the goal line, get that bigger body in here, somebody, kind of like what you want a Mike Pirine to be.
I was just going to say that, when you talk about, where we were right, where we were wrong, Pirine was definitely not what I expected him to do. I thought he'd have more of a role. And then when you look at the X factor that we talked about before the season in Trayvon Wesco, we thought maybe he could be a mini Juice out there, like Sam Fran's using Juice Check, but he was nowhere close to that. They brought in Nick Bowden and he was okay, but I think they need to find somebody maybe in the draft, maybe in free agency where they could designate to that natural fullback role. What do you think about that, Coach?
No, absolutely. The fullback or the H-back now is such an important part, especially this type of offense where you really want to, displace people. But they also need to be able to go out and make some plays, make some catches, especially on the bootleg passes, which are becoming so very popular and a great place. But yeah, those guys are hard to find. You're asking a guy to do a lot of different things. He's got to be able to get his nose dirty, knock people on their can, and then go make a great catch and turn it upfield. And that's going to be one of those guys that maybe has to be a hidden gem in the draft, or maybe you can steal one of those guys who's established away from another team. But and the great teams, look in the playoffs. How many teams in the playoff right now have one of those? It's especially, like you mentioned the 49ers, which these guys are all of that tree. If they find that guy, I think that's gonna add a few wins right there.
Yeah, I think we prefaced it. We didn't have expectations for Wesco to be use check. We knew that they're totally different players. We just thought that he could help out and do some of those jobs. But when you look at, this offseason, it's got to really be like the offseason back in, I think it was 2008, right? Where you are able to sign a Damian Woody. You're able to sign an Alan Faneca. You're able to sign a Calvin Pace. You're able to sign a Tony Richardson, right? To go along and complement some really phenomenal drafts where you were able to add guys like DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold and Darrelle Revis and David Harris, and now you can complement these guys, and the Jets have an opportunity here, right? Where the 2021 class, right? You walked out of it with 6 starters, right? So when you walk out of a class with that many starters, and we're not talking about guys that are starting because they're on the Jets, right? We're talking about guys that are legitimate. Like when you look at those first 4 picks, especially, right? I mean, Zack Wilson, obviously, he'll be a question mark for who knows how long, right? But when you look at those first 4 picks to get the production that you got from those guys, the quarterback excluded, you've got to be really happy about that. And then you're able to get 2 starting cornerbacks, a starting nickel in Michael Carter the 2nd and the 5th round, and then you're able to get a starting corner in Brandon Echols in the 6th, right? Like this is a quality class where there's an opportunity here where to use this free agency to really get this job done. And so when you look at, like Coach said, I think, this fullback position is a dying breed, right? There's not many, right? Like the college system is the farm system, right? How many colleges are running out with a fullback? Almost none of them. They're all in spread or in gun, and no one's really using a fullback. And so you have to steal one from an established team, I think, right? Like the Jets did with Tony Richardson all those years ago, right? They stole him from the Minnesota Vikings after spending years there blocking for Adrian Peterson, right? So, they are 2 years blocking for Adrian Peterson. So they end up stealing him and bringing him over. So I think you got to make, like, can you steal, the guy from the Chiefs? Can you steal the guy from the Patriots? Can you steal, obviously you can't steal Juszczyk. He's just signed to a deal recently, but can you steal some of these guys, that have the potential to be free agents?
No, absolutely. And then, you talk about the fullback, I think it starts with the offensive line when we're starting with the fullbacks. You just touched on the draft. I think Veratucker was probably the best draft pick as so far that we had. And when you look at the offensive line, especially early in the year, you had all these moving parts. Becton got hurt. McGovern is McGovern. My feelings on McGovern. But
wait, I thought your feelings on McGovern changed.
So. No, he's still a terrible center. His first step is terrible. But but that's neither here or there. But it's going to take. It always takes time with a new offensive line to gel and to work together.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Frankie is right. So he's certainly an expert on being a center. I can attest to that. And like you said, time. And my God, get that damn first step down.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the offensive line, right, I think, again, as you saw the offense get better, you saw the offensive line also get better as well. I mean, I look at the Tampa game, the fact that the way they were able to run against Tampa, which is such a dominant run defense, if you watched the game against the Eagles, right, you saw that as well. They've been like that all year, but the Jets were able to run for over 200 yards against them, under 200 yards, like $150 or something like that. But they were able to run for have success against that Bucs front. That was all, that was scheme, and that was coaching up that offensive line to run your scheme at a high level. And so I think if they are able to get some more athletes in here, Frank and I have talked about this. If they can sign, take that Buffalo mold, sign 3, 4, 5. They don't have to be high-priced free agent offensive linemen. They could just be mid-level offensive linemen where you're able to help build up the depth, because that's what we've seen, right? When you have Mekhi Becton go down, and then you have George Fant go down, or you have Morgan Moses in and out of the lineup, or you got Connor McGovern going down, and now your offensive line consists of some combination of Connor McDermott, Dan Feeney, Chuma Adoga, what's the other dude's name? GVR, Greg Van Roten. When your offensive line consists of some combination of this, all hell is going to break loose literally for your quarterback.
Yeah, you said his name wrong. It's Greg Van Roten, because that's how he played. Because he is one of the worst offensive linemen I've ever seen. Having him next to McGovern, and I think that's what really turned the Jets' run game around, is when the Jets made that trade for Duvernay. When you brought in a solid guard that had solid technique, you could kind of hide the deficiencies of a center that's average to below average when you're tag teaming and scoop blocking. Coach, do you have any experience on maybe a below center having a experienced guard next to him?
No, absolutely. It's so much with the offensive line. You don't necessarily have to be the great. You don't have to go out and get these guys, paying them $20 million, but they got to be smart. They got to be technicians, and they have to be tenacious. Like Frankie, when he was with us, he was, how much did you weigh? 160 pounds? You put a brick in your pants?
Yeah, if I had a brick.
Yeah. And we won't talk about the time you snapped the ball into your own ass, but that's a whole nother story. But, it's an area where you can grow, where you can have players, really improve. But you gotta get rid of some guys who just can't play. If they're playing like a traffic cone, there's not much even the best coach in the world can really do with that.
Couldn't agree more.
Totally agree with that. And there's free agent. I mean, there are a lot of free agents at the offensive line position coming up. Brandon Scherf, I think, probably highlights the position group. Could you convince a guy like Cam Robinson to come in here and play right tackle, right? Like, is that something that's feasible? Or even convince one of these guys to slide in the guard, right? But either way, I don't think they need to spend big money at the position. I think if they just can get a few players to bring along as depth, continue to build that position through the draft, using you have two top 10 picks, one at 4, one at 10. You could use one of those picks to potentially upgrade the offensive line. Just give yourself, if you're the Jets, as much flexibility as you can, but you really need to build this offensive line and this offense to the best that you can to evaluate your quarterback in Zack Wilson.
Yeah, that's the main thing, right? We got to figure out what we have with Zack Wilson, and it's hard to do that when you don't have weapons around him, when everybody's dropping like flies, when in the beginning part of the year, he didn't have time where he had to break the pocket. And I think that was the problem with Sam. It was hard to see what Sam really was because he was so deficient in talent around him.
Yeah,
totally.
Talent erases a lot of mistakes.
That is definitely true. So with that being said, I mean, Frank, I think we got to pay some bills, man. This is the longest we've ever gone without paying some bills, brother. So why don't you let the folks know who's sponsoring the show?
Yeah, but before that, we're a little different today. Coach, you just wrote a book, so why don't you tell us the name of the book and what inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, sure. My new book is out. It's called How to Beat Stalin, Hitler, and the Southern State Parkway. And it's on Amazon or Google or all the Barnes & Noble and all that. And basically, it's a motivational book. And I wrote it we were stuck in the pandemic, and I saw a lot of people getting upset and depressed and going through some hard times. And I thought, maybe this could be my way to try to help. And it's about my family's history. And it's about how my mother, when I was a youth, we had a lot of midnight chats. And when I was a kid, I was, on the verge of suicide. And the book is how she helped me turn my life around, how she pushed me towards football, and how all the great coaches and men I came across on that field really saved my life. And, this sport, it's a lot of fun. And listening to you guys talk about the Jets and your passion is excellent. And I enjoy, all that aspects of the game. But why we really play is to take care of each other. And it's that camaraderie, that's that family, it's being brothers forever. It saves lives. And it's why I've always loved coaching. It's why I'm always going to keep coaching as long as they let me. And, that's the ultimate message of the book, is that we're all in this together. We got to take care of each other. We got to love each other. And that's what football is, man. If you do it right, like you guys were talking about chemistry with the line, it's not only brings you to success on the field, but in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, I think and I think John will attest, right? That's the reason why we all played, right? It was the camaraderie, the bond, the Friday nights, the feeling that you get before you walk out onto a football field. And, you know, sometimes when you're so far removed from playing or coaching, you kind of forget about that feeling. But that's the key component that I think brings us all back, is that the love that we have for the game and the love that we have for each other.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I mean, the I've I think all three of us can say that like we've learned some of our greatest life lessons from football, right? Like problem solving, how to play, how to get along with teammates. How even if you don't get along with teammates, if you have a disagreement, how you handle that. But ultimately, doing your job at your highest ability, your highest capability, because the person to your left or to your right or behind you or in front of you is depending on you to do your job. Depending on you, if you got to be in the A gap, we're dependent on you to be in the A gap, right? So it's there's so many lessons, and I'm sure you can get them from so many sports, but none of them is not many of them as physically taxing and mentally taxing uh, as football could be. So, Coach, I mean, testament to you for realize seeing a gap and wanting to help and writing that book and leaning, showing your experiences, using your experiences as a vehicle to help steer others towards a path where they might have thought that something that things weren't maybe working out so well for them, and now maybe they can see that through. So definitely ask you, hey, go check out the book, go order it on Amazon and support Coach Boris.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and to not change directions completely, but to stay in the same lines, because this is a football podcast, is a New York Jets podcast, and we have seen Jets coaches before where fans say they choke. In your experience, what is choking as a head coach when you're calling plays on offense and or defense?
No, it's funny, everybody wants to be in that position, right? Hey, I want to call the game. Oh, this coach, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, right? How many times have you said that? God knows people said it about me on the high school level. And I remember the first time I called plays, it was the first game, and it was the first 4th and 1, and I just went, you just freeze up. And, there wasn't anybody in the stands. And, it's high school game, but it's still something that can be absolutely terrifying. What do I do? And and the clock is ticking. And there's not really many other situations in life that are like that, right? Where there's all this pressure and you're on the clock, and what you call is going to impact the entire game and change the course of history here. So what a lot of coaches try to do is take the thinking out of it. And that kind of leads you to that scenario. Remember that famous Super Bowl where they didn't give it to Marshawn Lynch on the goal line? Where they, Pete Carroll and all those guys, they said, okay, what if we get in this situation? What are we going to call to take thought process out of it? So they practiced that for months, if not weeks, or years. But of course they threw the pass. And as we all know, was that probably one of the worst calls in human history. But they were prepared for that, and that's what drives you nuts as a coach. So if you go with your gut, or do you go with the stats, right? Do you go with your preparation? And ultimately it comes down to, are the guys going to execute? That can make the coach look like a genius more times than not, as if the people execute. But it's it's something you prepare for. It's something you think about. But when the heat of the moment strikes, it can be paralyzing. And it gets better with experience. It gets better with preparation, but, it's a hell of a position to be in.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And so was that one of the few times that you choked was that first game?
Oh, some people say I choked every game, but
I would say those people are wrong.
no, it's tough. I'll do the opposite of it. Like one time, it was in the one championship game. We knew the team was going to do a rollout pass on third and whatever, and we had our two best players in the state blitz, and they hit the quarterback in the backfield, but he somehow broke free and ran 40 yards for the game-winning touchdown. So that coach looks like a genius now, right? And it's just because the two of the best players, they just had a bad play. There have been some definite calls I want back over the career, but it's just you just got to learn from it and move on. It's something that you just keep trying to overcome. But the kids and great players and things of that nature make you always look a lot smarter than you actually are.
Yeah, I think it resonates to life in general. You talk about the great football movies that are out there. Any given Sunday, Al Pacino's speech about the inches around us dictate how our life is going to go. I think, an inch here, an inch there, those guys probably make the tackle and you probably win a sectional title, and how that course could have altered whatever for
Right.
you.
And it's funny. It's like every coach, has spent God knows how many hours preparing for that moment. I remember being up, 2, 3 in the morning, so imagine what a pro coach is doing. And, and then they get in the game and it doesn't work out. And everybody in the world's looking at them and saying, oh my God, what is with this idiot? I remember watching last week the 49er game. And Garoppolo went for the quarterback sneak to get the first down and basically iced the game. But they shifted a tackle, and the tackle didn't reset in time. And they got offsides, and they wound up, giving the ball back to Dallas one more time. And Dallas, being Dallas, shot themselves in the foot, but that's a whole nother story. But, just little things like shifting that tackle. They were trying to be smart. They were trying to get the defense out of position, maybe jump off sides, but they outsmarted themselves. And Shanahan's one of the best coaches in the league, right? But and Garoppolo's pretty good. He's an experienced quarterback. He didn't wait for the guy to get reset, and it's like you said, inches, or if you just line up and say without a shift, without being fancy, and you get stuffed. Oh, they just ran the quarterback sneak, and that was stupid, So it's it's a hell of a situation to be in. That's why I don't like to criticize coaches on TV anymore.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way with officials.
Yeah, the officials, my goodness, poor officials. We always hate officials, right? But that's one of the hardest jobs in the world, and it's probably the most thankless. After the game, nobody's ever carrying the officials off on their shoulders. But good luck having a game without the officials. I know people are gonna hate, punch me in the face now for being nice to the officials, especially after I've screamed at one or two over the years.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember a story when I was playing, and a bunch of our listeners will find this very entertaining because this former Jet player that you played against is kind of looked at as like one of the gods in Jet lore. Can you tell the audience why you hate Wayne Chrebet so much?
Oh my God, Wayne Chrebet. When I was playing at Fordham, we'd always have to play Hofstra every year. And people don't know Hofstra used to have a great, great football program. God knows why they let that go. But we had Hofstra beat one year. And we were winning by about 14 points. And we weren't a good team back then. Hofstra was, and this was going to be the upset of the the season. You know, it was going to change our lives. And then Wayne Corbett got involved. And it was 3rd and 20, and they hit him with a little 0-yard screen just to get a couple yards and punt, and he went 80 yards for a touchdown. And then the onslaught just came, and Wayne Corbett broke our hearts. And it was also that same night, coincidentally, where I was sitting on the bench, and in the stands behind me, I heard my friend's mom screaming, "Hey, which one's Steven?" She wanted to come see me and see which one I was. And my friend points me out, and she's like, "That guy can't be Steven. That kid's bald." And that was also the same night I realized I had lost my hair.
That's got to be rough.
So that was the double whammy. So I always associate learning I lost my hair with Wayne Corbett, and then I had to watch Wayne on TV every Sunday for 10 years, doing great. And every time he'd get a catch, I'd remember that loss, and I remember that was the day I found out I was going bald. It was a double trauma to me right there.
That's funny. But did you have a cup of coffee with a couple teams from the NFL?
I got invited to the Giants, and they kindly, you know, I did the height and weight test, and they said I flunked the height and weight test. And I did get to take a shower with them afterwards, so that was exciting. And they gave me a nice sandwich and a big chocolate chip cookie.
Those are always good. But let's get into these divisional games. So this segment's going to be brought to you guys by DraftKings. We're on to divisional round of the playoffs, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is celebrating with huge odds boost for new customers. Counting down to Super Bowl 56, new customers can get 56-1 odds on any team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still get in on the action of the divisional round. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN and get 56-1 odds on any NFL team. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets. If your team wins, that's promo code TPPN for 56-1 odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years or older. New Jersey, New York, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, Coach, the first game of the weekend is going to be Saturday at 4:30. Cincinnati against Tennessee. Tennessee is giving 3.5. What do we think about that?
It's going to be tough. Tennessee's got their running back, right? He's back.
Yeah, Derrick Henry is back.
I mean, my goodness, they're tough without him. They're going to be a real bear with him. But you know, you can never count Joe Burrow out. You know, he's an emerging star, and you know, he's always got a puncher's chance there. So I'm going to have to go with Tennessee, though.
Yeah, for me, you know, I think Cincinnati's defense is just better, and I think Derrick Henry's been out for a little while. I think he might be a little rusty, and that connection that Joe Burrow has with his receivers, I just think is something special. And I don't think Ryan Tannehill has the capability, if it's a shootout, to go one-on-one with Joe Burrow.
I'd agree in that case. If it's a shootout, yeah, advantage Burrow. Absolutely.
So the late game on that is going to be San Fran against Green Bay. Green Bay is giving 5.5.
Yeah, that's a lot to give. You know, Green Bay certainly the top team for a reason. Rodgers, you know, is going to backflip into the Hall of Fame, and you know, he's big edge there over Garoppolo. I mean, there's no question about it. But I want to see if Bosa can get back. I think if he's out, then I think definitely Green Bay. If they get if their defense can play up to its potential, then you don't want to count San Fran out, but I got to go with Green Bay in this case.
Yeah, I go the same. It's just the NFL is a quarterback league, and Aaron Rodgers is head over like 10 times better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And, you count that you have Devontae Adams as Rodgers' number one receiver, and San Fran doesn't have that caliber of offense yet. So, like you said, if Bosa's not playing, they have no shot. And if Bosa does play, I think the shot is minimal.
Yeah, I agree.
Sunday, we got LA against Tampa. Tampa's given 3 points.
Oh my goodness. What am I going to do here? We can't root. We have to root against Tom Brady, right?
Always root against Tom Brady.
I mean, it's just this is terrible. I don't want to. I'm going to go the other way, and they're up and coming. They're rising. I think this is their year, right? They've bet the farm, and I got to go with them with LA.
Yeah, same for me. I just think they brought in Odell. They brought in Matt Stafford, so they have a legitimate quarterback now. They traded for Von Miller, so you got Von Miller and Aaron Donald. That defense is scary, and what always have given Brady trouble is that pressure right up the middle, right up the either side of the A gap or either side of the B gap, and that's what Aaron Donald normally does. So if they can't stop Aaron Donald, I don't really see a way that Brady's going to be able to distribute the ball like he wants to.
Yeah, and he's lost too many weapons.
Yeah, AB in particular,
yep.
Antonio Brown.
God bless him.
So I think the last game of the weekend is probably going to be the best game of maybe the playoffs, in my opinion. You got the Buffalo Bills traveling to Kansas City, and Kansas City is only giving 2 points, and that's usually the spread for a home game. So what are your thoughts on that?
Kansas City giving 2 points?
Yeah.
I think this might not be the best version of the Kansas City team. For some reason they just haven't been clicking as they used to all year. But by looking at them last week, I think they've finally come together at the right time. And they threw that one touchdown pass, got called back, and then they come back and throw it to the tackle the next play.
That was awesome.
And then they're just toying with people. So I think it's got to be Kansas City.
I got to disagree. The way that Buffalo dismantled that New England Patriots defense was something to behold, especially when you talk about that weather. I think it was like a -6 degree wind chill up in Buffalo
right.
last Saturday, and the way that they just dominated a top 10 defense like that. So I think it's going to be close. I could see it being less than a field goal. And I think Josh Allen and the Bills are the only team that are going to be able to go shot for shot with Kansas City if it's a shootout.
No, I would agree with that. Buffalo had a game for the ages last week, to be sure. And if anybody can beat the Chiefs, it's the Bills. Sure.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. But, Coach, before we head off, why don't you tell everybody, again, the name of your book, where they could find it, and all that good stuff.
Sure. Name of the book, again, is How to Beat Stalin, Hitler, and the Southern State Parkway. You can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Apple Play or all that good stuff. It's not just about football; it's about history too. That'll help explain the title there a little bit. But it's a story. If you're down in the dumps and need a pick me up, it could be a good story for you. So please check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that on the link to your Amazon on my Twitter, Facebook, all our socials, because a bunch of those stories that I was told, growing up playing for you, changed the trajectory of my life, and the book is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you, Coach, for helping. I can't even tell you how many people.
Well, thank you. It's I really appreciate that, and I'm very proud of you, and just seeing you doing this and all the other great things you do in your life. It's what it's all about, right? And then and you're going to help that next generation grow up too. Keep passing it on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on and helping us break down the Jets and getting your book out there. And I will talk to you real soon.
All right. Take care. God bless.
God bless.